everyone, my name is Riya Bhansali. I'm a certified yoga teacher and a NLP coach. Now, today I'm really excited to share with you one person who's made me get this certificate. It's someone I wanted on this channel for a very long time and I got grab of him today. He is Ashlesh, and for those of you who don't know this guy, he's made a major impact in several lives, especially mine, and that I can vouch for personally. He is the co-founder of Newer Way Academy and is a certified NLP master trainer and NLP master coach. He's been trained by so many personalities. One of my favorites is Tony Brown's and John Grinder. What can I tell you about his workshops? They're life transforming. They develop coaches. So many of the coaches over there are actually my friends, and he's been really hardworking. He and his wife Monica, who again we'll have shortly on the show. And the trainings are just amazing. I personally enjoyed, and those are the days I can personally never forget. They're innovative, fun, creative for both individuals and professionals, and even for corporates. So it's amazing to have you on the show, Ashlesh. Welcome, welcome, welcome. No introduction is going to do justice for the kind of work you and Monica actually put into the workshops. I just hope we could get some clips, but I'm just gonna walk you through with this plain simple interview, guys. Today we're gonna talk about anxiety, the lockdown, how it has changed people. But first, thank you so much, Ashlesh, for coming here.
Thank you, Riya. Thank you.
So, Ashlesh, I want to just ask you, like some of us know it, but how did you get introduced to NLP? What was your journey? And what difference did it make to you personally in your life?
Okay, it's been quite some time. So, is it okay if I give you some background? Like it's
Lovely.
history.
I think, yeah, our audience would love to know how you got to here, and some of our people who actually even know you might not know your background.
Okay, all right. So I used to work in an education company, Landmark Education. We used to conduct seminars and programs, and I loved working there. I left there in 2001. That's when Monica and I also got married. And so when we were married, both of us didn't have a job. And so um, I was very, very clear about, both of us were very clear that we wanted to uh, do something meaningful, but didn't know what it was. I knew I wanted to work with people, but I didn't have a background of working with people, though in Landmark I did. And, though it's a different methodology. And that's when I we tried out different things, even thinking about businesses and all that. And then somebody told me about NLP. A friend of mine mentioned NLP. So I stumbled into some books. I didn't understand. Then I read. I went for some workshops. To be honest, I didn't really think too much of it. But it was an interesting thing, Riya, because sometimes when you have a voice that just tells you stay with it, stay with it, look at it. Like it's like I would open the newspaper and I would see an NLP workshop. I would go and attend. Yeah, just walking across a book, not a, yeah, across a bookshop, and I see a book. It's almost like it's calling it NLP, and I would buy the book. And I didn't understand many of them. I couldn't understand. Didn't But there are few people who've actually impacted me a lot. One is uh, so the HL Management Academy. Some lovely, lovely teachers were there. Mr. Janaki Ram, Prakash, wonderful teachers. Then through Mr. Prakash, I got to know about Father Dick McHugh, who is an absolutely amazing teacher. So I went to Bombay and I did my master practitioner with him too. I'd done it with the HL Management Academy. I did it with Father Dick McHugh. And it's around that time something began to start happening. Like I began to start having quite deep experiences, awarenesses. That's when things began to start making sense to me. I started noticing a lot of unconscious shifts, and my awareness increased. And then what happened was went on to do my trainer program, trained with Tony Robbins, wonderful, wonderful teachers I've trained with ever since, John Grinder, Owen Fitzpatrick, wonderful teachers. Now what happened was both Monica and I, the moment we learned NLP, we started implementing it. Even if we didn't know it well enough, we would, like it. My family members, my friends, they were all sick of me, to be honest. So I would just say, hey, listen, come, you tell me about a problem, and then I would work with them. And um, what happened for both Monica and I, we started working with children, then uh, homemakers, professionals. We knew we were doing something right because people started coming back to us, And a huge aspect of my learning has been working with sports people. I used to be a badminton player. I don't look like one, but I used to be a badminton player, and I loved badminton. Still love badminton, and I had a good fortune of working with some of the best badminton players in our country. It started off, uh, you know, with youngsters. Then I started working with state, national levels, international level players, and that's when my learning of NLP became really, really good because we could see results happening, and I knew the techniques what we were using was working because there's a slump in form. You work with them, you can immediately see the difference in their performance. So that got me hooked on to NLP. Then from there, from sports, it went to we started conducting shorter 2-day programs, then the practitioner program. Then our journey started off from there. So it's been a very so the changes you asked me what changes. One is from a skill point of view. I definitely saw that we were able to, both Monica and I, we were able to, for most clients, we were able to help people get the change that they wanted. Okay, so that was definitely very, very fulfilling for us. And different kinds of challenges, personal, emotional, results, actions, behaviors. So we could see that happening. Um, the other thing was my own shifts, in terms of understanding myself better, in being able to use my unconscious to give me answers, to make changes, help, using the unconscious. So it really became a very interesting journey, both inwards and outwards, and that's how it's been, So I don't know if I'm very specific, but if you can ask me questions, then I'll share.
And so these are like, this is what exactly I wanted to know, like, how you've actually seen a stark difference. Now, actually, some of my viewers who are actually probably seeing this right now would not even know, like, how can a coach probably help in someone's life? Can you give like few examples here and there for a layman to understand? Because I came from a non-coaching background. I was, of course, into finance and accounting. And when I heard about NLP, I was like, is this real? And then, only once you start researching and you step into this world, you realize the kind of impact it can have. And of course, my faith in it grew because my CA happened because of this and so many other things. But can you explain to a layman who's probably like from a different world or a professional world, that you would say?
Right. It was kind of like my world in many ways because I came from a different paradigm, and then though it was training, so typically I think most people want to do well in life, whatever it is. Be happier, be more efficient, produce better results, get healthier, stronger, water, fitter. Everything. People want, they love progress. That's a journey for most of us. We want better relationships, all that. Uh, most and a lot of how we function. I hope I'm speaking. I'm trying to be as simple as possible. Let's see. If not, just let me know. Okay. So what tends to happen is a lot of what we do comes from, let's say, our conditioning, automatic conditioning, right? And maybe some results I got at one point of time, and automatically I begin to start thinking in a particular way. Automatically I start doing the same kind of actions, and we tend to get into a loop or a pattern. Yeah, a pattern, and then we begin to start operating that way. So now what happens is, have you ever had the experience where someone has told you, hey Riya, you've changed, but you haven't realized that you've changed? Has that ever happened?
So many times.
Right.
So many times.
Right. So I would like to look at it like, what happens if you didn't recognize it, typically that changes happen unconsciously, right? Now, what happens is that's great when we're changing unconsciously for the better. But what happens is we also develop unconsciously we also develop limiting behaviors and patterns. We develop certain limiting, like certain emotions can stop us. So if you, I'll tell you one very very simple thing. In school, in class, one of the patterns for me was that if the teacher asked a question, if I knew the answer also, nobody else raised the hand, I wouldn't raise my hand. Simple. It's a very simple thing.
Oh yeah. This is very common amongst most students, I would feel.
Okay, so I wouldn't raise my hand, even if I knew the answer. I'd have the joy. I want to raise my hand, but I don't raise my hand. Now I'm just giving a very simple school example. If this pattern continues, you'll actually find it showing up in different ways, even let's say at work. Like they want to show up, but they don't show up. They want to speak up in a meeting, but they don't. They want to communicate something, but they don't. Now, it may not seem related, but we learn patterns like this, and it's all unconscious.
And it continues for a very long.
It continues. Oh, it continues. Yeah, absolutely. So, we develop patterns of emotions. Like we learn how to respond a particular way, and that same emotions that becomes a pattern, and we've not developed to generate new emotions which can help us in different situations. Anyway, so so we develop patterns of thinking, patterns of emotions, patterns of results. So what a coach can do is to help the person explore deeper outside their awareness, help them increase their awareness, go deeper to make changes. And when like we call them mental blocks, right? We all have our own little mental blocks and all that. And somebody may be trying really hard to change, but something is stopping them, and they don't know what it is. So one of the things a coach can do, and I think a good coach can do, is to help them resolve these mental blocks, or that can help them. It's almost like if someone is carrying shackles or weights with them, but they don't even know they're carrying weights. But the moment they drop their weights, when they run, they'll be able to sprint. So is that making sense? Would that be simple enough?
Yeah, I'm actually thinking from a non-coach point of view today, so that my audience can relate to what you're actually doing. But also it brings back memories of my own NLP training. And I remember when we did the tile breaking session, I think that opened up the part where I was not able to do CA for about 4-5 attempts, and then suddenly I remember, like, for those of you who actually don't know, I'm a chartered accountant. Couldn't clear it in the first attempt. After 4 attempts, I didn't clear. After the NLP training, like that, with a lot of ease and joy, actually, I cleared one group, and then used the same pattern again for the completion of the course. So I completely understand. But like prior to the NLP training, I never thought of hiring a coach or things like that. And I'm sure so many people in India are not even aware of this. Do you think this is something that is more like acceptable, getting a coach in the West as compared to India at present, or is it growing? How do you see it?
Definitely think it's growing. Definitely, you hear the word coach a lot more in India now than a few years ago. So it's definitely growing. I don't think it's anywhere close to how it's in the West, but it's definitely growing. I think, and it will grow. It's growing quite rapidly, to be honest.
Yeah, more people are acceptable to this, not even as a profession, just to hire a coach to see, how they can probably help out, right? But how do you see like the lockdown, how has it impacted people mentally? Because I'm here in Bahrain, so we never faced the lockdown for good or for bad. So we don't know the kind of impact, or of course we read it, but we don't know what's happening in India, when you're restricted to like 4 walls for 3 months, and you go out only maybe for grocery shopping, that also one member probably going out. So how do you think this has impacted the people mentally in India, or has it even impacted?
Yeah, I've seen. See, again, I think a good thing is that I've also spoken to different people, and it's quite interesting, Ria, because most of what we hear are things that don't work. Okay, all right. I've come across a lot of people who have actually seen the lockdown as a boon. Okay, it's both. I'm not saying people are not facing challenges. I mean, personally, I'll tell you when the lockdown happened, more from a work perspective, I shut down. It was not just the lockdown. I shut down because I didn't know how we were going to do our programs. And it's the first time something like this. I mean, in my life that most of us are experiencing. I think maybe the Spanish flu was one, and this one. So so for me, we're used to doing live programs, right? So for me, I was just thinking, okay, when this gets over, we'll start our live program. So couldn't predict what was happening. So I'm going to share two perspectives, may I? Would that be okay? So one thing is, I think emotionally it's hit a lot of people. Uncertainty has hit a lot of people. It's been very uncertain for a lot of people. People have lost their jobs, and obviously, businesses, freelancers, many of them, you take the travel industry. So some industries have just been shut down. Okay, so
There's no going digital for them.
sorry, there's no going digital. Yeah, right. So I think industries, people have been, so that has been a big one for a lot of people. Now what's happened as a result of the lockdown, I'm going to speak two perspectives, and what I've generally heard, that some people, they see, when people are used to going to work, coming back, it gives them some kind of balance. They have their own space. So for a lot of people, the fact that they go to work, they have their own life outside, then they come back, they're spending time with their children, with family, so that's fine. Now suddenly what's happened is people have staying together, and they're looking at each other all the time. There's no me time. So for example, morning, children used to get up and they used to go to school. Then the mother, father would sit, they would read the newspaper, drink a cup of tea, and have their own read the newspaper, feel really good. They have that space. Now suddenly what's happened, the children are screaming in front of them. you know uh, Everything's happening in like one house, one home, and people don't know how to deal with it. So apart from the uncertainty aspect of not knowing about what's going to happen to job, income, and that's been a huge one. The second thing is that people are have been all of us, we've been put in almost like a big boss situation. Like you watch the Big Brother, Big Boss situation. Like first few days, everyone's really nice to each other. Then suddenly it starts erupting. So that's one aspect that I've seen. The other aspect that I've seen is where people are looking at it as a blessing, and I've spoken to quite a few people about this. It's given people, especially a lot of people who have been obsessed with work, to step back and be with their family. And like one of my friends was telling me, I can't believe my son is 8. Okay, I've my son is 8, and he has a traveling job, loves his job. Now since he's operating from home, he's gotten a lot of time to reflect. He's appreciating his parents, his family. He's re-looking at himself. So new awareness, building powerful relationships with his children. So when you look at all that, I'm seeing both. So some people, definitely the uncertainty has really hit lots of people, but I'm also seeing this other side. Where it's given people time to step back and really appreciate what they have. Go simple.
Cut
I
back
think,
on couple of things probably.
yeah, like understanding, do we really need, I mean, what I've been chasing all these years, is it something that I really wanted? Just going to the essentials of life. So appreciating people, like a lot of people, even during this time, health workers, and even you know people are coming out to help so much. So when you see all this, it's actually bringing humanity together in so many ways. So what's happening is this lockdown. I don't know if it's a curse or if it's a blessing. Some people will call it a blessing. Some people will call it a curse. Um, Again, depends on maybe what we're looking at. Yeah. So maybe which part of the equation one is in. So
But what did you see as like major problem that people were facing here? Just looking, as somebody probably who's looking for an answer here, and what did you see as a common problem here?
okay, so I'm going to speak about a very basic thing. So I'm not even go to relationships now. Security. Okay, so the security is not the problem, but the lack of security, in the sense the uncertainty of what's going to happen, and like none of us know it. Even now, we don't know.
When it's going to happen? Is it going to be okay? How is it going to take place? If it's going to take place?
Yeah. So just imagine December 2019 or Jan 2020. Write your goals, put your vision board, all that, and So that's like, where's all that gone? All the travel goals, everything just gone. So I think the number one thing is the uncertainty that has thrown a lot of us off, a lot of people off, and a lot of us, we get our security from the income, know the stability of that income. Now for many people, that stability is gone. If they've lost their job, if they're not getting projects, once that's gone, it gets people to feel insecure. So and as a result, what's happening is very strong emotional responses. So I think the uncertainty of the future, the uncertainty of the situation, again, not everyone, I'm just saying that if people have had challenges with their job or their work, and they're not getting that stability or that secure income, that's throwing a lot of people off. And that is one thing that I'm seeing as a big problem. I'm just going to share an extension of this. So let's say some of my friends, financially they may be secure, okay, but what many of them are missing is, see, we are creatures of habit, right? We wake up at a particular time, do certain activities like going for a walk, run, whatever. So there's a routine that people are used to. Now what's happened with the lockdown, the habits have just been disrupted. That also creates uncertainty and anxiety. And I mean, the conversation was around anxiety. The anxiety comes from being uncertain about what's going to happen in the future, the lack of, if what we are consistently doing, if we are not able to do, it tends to throw us off.
Right. No, that is true. So, do you think like the anxiety problem doesn't exist in the normal life that we have, or people are just better at hiding it, or they're just not self-aware other than lockdown?
So let me put it this way. I think if there is a certain situation, like if someone's put in a steamer, there's only so much heat one can take,
Yeah.
right? Beyond that, one's gonna get cooked. Okay. Now, what happened? Sorry, it was a horrible example, but you get the point, right?
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
So it's a metaphor, yeah. So what happens is, all of us have, there are certain activities that we do that helps us stay sane, helps us feel good. Like some people love writing, reading, working. I mean, you're a yoga teacher, so some people love to connect with people that are close to them. Oh, here's the other thing I've seen: people for whom touch is very important, hugs are very important. So I've seen quite a few of them actually, missing that. So there are needs that all of us have. It's not like we have anxiety, but there's certain things that we do. When we do, it just helps us. Okay. Now, when that is taken away, one is not able to do that on a consistent basis. It can build the like you can say that the pressure just there's no outlet, right? Yeah, there's no expression, right? You tell an artist that they can't express or they can't paint, it's going to throw them off because there's so much energy. There's so much energy, that energy needs to be expressed somewhere. So that's my take on it. I don't know if it's anxiety is in people. I think
There's no
when
outlet for it.
yeah, there's no expression for it.
But Ashlesh, I think the lockdown, or of course the lockdown's over. It's happening in phases. We don't know, it even might come back, and there's still a lot of uncertainty to the situation all around the world. So I've been quarantined sometimes because of my colleagues being tested positive and things like that. So like one day back everything's normal, and the next day you're just in like a room, and this is just happening back and forth. So how do you think people should deal with this, or can NLP help us? I'm anticipating at least one more year of this up and down. So of course, until now, I think our audience didn't get a solution. But do you suggest any NLP techniques that could probably help us in this?
Yeah. So is it okay if I share about what I've learned from speaking to people?
Yeah,
Because
anything.
to me NLP is about that, what life shows. So I worked with a few people who were tested positive, okay, and I think one huge thing that's helped a lot of people is the acceptance of the situation. This is it. I think even I struggled, to be honest, initially. Like I couldn't. Like a friend texted me and said, "Oh my God, 23 days lockdown." And I hadn't heard the news or read the news, and I was like, "What's a lockdown?" Like, oh,
Reality hit.
So I think it took time to accept that life is changed or it's changing. So I think for one to say, okay, this is it, right? That's the first step. Then I think the next thing is, okay, what is most important for me at this point of time, and how can I make sure that those are met? If all of us have certain needs, basic needs, and I think one of the needs we have is the need for certainty. Tony Robbins talks about that, the need for certainty and stability. So even if, let's say, we are struggling, I don't know where my work is going to come from, let's say, if we can do some activities that can help us be more stable, or we are certain to do that, that can help us feel more like we're certain we can do, um, I think that goes a long way. Like to explain what I'm saying is a simple thing, like one of my friends was saying, I can't go for a walk, and they were getting upset about that. I can't even go for a walk normally. And the fact that what he did was he just did, okay, to what's important for me to move my body. That expression is important. So he said, what can I take charge of? What can I take control of? And he started doing, no matter what, a 15-minute walk in his house. That's it. It didn't replace his 1 hour walk
outside.
But just the 15-minute discipline of walking in the house, that itself gave him some sense of, okay, there's a routine that I'm following. So acceptance is definitely one. Maybe doing something that gets us to feel more centered and grounded. Following some kind of routine, I think, has helped a lot of people. There are NLP processes that which help in changing how we are perceiving the future and the present. There are some techniques we can use for that. That can help a lot in feeling a lot more freer. So, but I think more than that, just some simple things: acceptance, doing something that we know we can do, and following a routine. I think is these three things are very, very simple. Like getting very clear, basic. Just get the basics in place, like the foundation. Once the foundation is there, then we can build.
Yeah. And also probably asking what you were getting out of the activity, like your friend, like if you just ask the right questions, like what was I getting out of this and how I can probably replace this in my own house or get the same thing done. So I think sticking to the basics is definitely going to make things more simpler. I remember my dad got tested positive as well, and asymptomatic, and sometimes the tests go wrong, sometimes they don't. So and there are so many opinions which take place, but I think he had a hard time digesting, and he was shifted to a hotel, and then he came back home, and then nobody's sure even in the government department as to how things are taking place. But definitely once he accepted it, and then he started just praying and getting himself busy, I think, just to divert the mind that okay, it's only like about 14 days, and things are probably going to move on. But how does, like in our situation, we definitely saw, touch wood, a strong family support. Certain cases the family is not aware that the person is going through such a situation. So how do you think a family can probably support or make somebody realize that they are going through it when the person lacks self-awareness?
When a person lacks self-awareness,
how can this family kind of like get around it, or kind of calm that person down? Because I'm sure so many of the cases like that are happening, and every case is so different from the other that I think everyone has a lockdown story now.
do you know what circle time is? So they do this in, I think, in Montessori schools or schools. What they do is the children, so they have what is called a circle time. So all the children of the class sit in a circle, and there are certain ground rules, that because in any class you'll have a loud kid and you'll have someone very quiet and timid and all. But that circle time is a time when and the teacher facilitates this, where there's listening, there is respect for each person's view, and so there's support. So it's a very special space that they create, right? Now, I think one of the things sometimes, in especially in uncertain times, we need structures that can support us. Okay, if we create certain structures, and I think one of the useful things could be that even if families can create their own circle time, that means they have a special time they spend. It could be a 15-20 minute, but it's a time where they sit together, and if it can be initiated by someone who's influential in the family, right? So just sitting together, okay, each one being honest and sharing what's there. So it's, you have a feeling that you're together, you're supporting each other, you're a team. Then it just becomes easier for one to be able to communicate at that point of time. So that's one thought. See, the question you asked was, if someone is not self-aware, how to help them become aware. I don't know that. I mean,
because in my dad's case, like he was like really active 4-5 days, because when people were calling, so he was quite busy with that. And then he just completely went low, I think after on the 6th to 7th day, and then that continued. And then there was that, okay, now what do I do, and I'm not busy and I don't have a routine. So there was a lot of talking him out of it and keeping him busy in our own way, and things like that. So I personally think the family supported, like my brother lives in Canada, and we were kind of taking turns maybe amongst, like talking him out of it. But I know certain families, I think the person is not self-aware that they're going down because they're so involved in the problem. But yeah, definitely a circle time activity seems very nice. But do you think that there are any I'm sure a lot of people who have been locked down alone and couldn't reach back to their families on time, is there any way that some person can identify or bring in self-awareness within themselves? Or are there like any symptoms that, physically that you sense something, or emotionally you sense
I think
something?
when people start shutting down, they start getting quieter, going into a shell. I think that's definitely I kind of felt that the first few days, like it was like one shock. I just went numb for some time. And though you're very correct, Riya. Thanks for saying this, because I think family support is such a huge, huge thing. And so Monica looking out for me looking out for Monica. So I think at this point of time, what helped a lot for me personally, people from different parts of the world that I haven't been connected to for a long time just send me a message. I hope you're doing fine. And I was wondering why they're sending me this text. Okay, but very sweet of them. And then I got it. They were, because I didn't understand the gravity of the situation. Okay, so so people writing to me and saying, I hope you're keeping fine, stay safe. People I haven't met in a long time. Okay, and that was extremely very humbling, very it was overwhelming to a certain point. Just felt very grateful. And I think in our own way, sometimes we go through times where maybe we need to look beyond ourselves and then make sure that the person in that same space or also is, we look out for each other. So uh, actually what you said made a lot of sense. You had to talk your dad through it, right? So
Yeah.
right, yeah.
But yeah, shutting down is definitely, I think, someone who's living alone, because I also came to know, not personally, that people couldn't catch their flight back home,
mm,
and the lockdown just happened, and they're like, oh, it's only 23 days, what's gonna happen? And then, just extended and it extended, and they got stuck in that place. So definitely, if someone who you think is withdrawing back, if someone who's watching this right now and you think that person's withdrawing, maybe you could reach out to that person or make them more self-aware, because
just
this is all about
connecting,
yeah,
We-
just connecting. And
yeah,
I think
yeah.
yes,
Just imagine, Riya, one big boon that we have is the internet and Zoom.
yeah, I
Imagine,
completely
imagine
agree.
if we didn't have this communication thing, it so like I've had close friends, their children are outside the country, they can't travel, so they FaceTime many times during the day, Skype or Zoom many times during the day, WhatsApp
Family
calls
meetings were happening and there
happening. Yeah,
games happening, and
yeah. So people made sure that a lot of people were doing that. And of course, I think what I'm also learning from what you just asked about the family, that we make sure that we're looking out for each other. So in some way reach out, make sure, who knows, just pay it forward. You reach out to one person, they'll reach out to another person, another person. I think in that way, we make sure that we're supporting each other, even in a small way, I think.
even yeah, I think the tiny difference is right there. But do you think that we could have effects post lockdown of the same thing, where people have time still coming out because they're so used to being in this way for a very long time? You think this could,
Like being in the lockdown?
yeah, no, post lockdown, when it probably starts opening up, do you think there'll be certain level of anxiety even then because of uncertainty? Or I mean, what's your take on it?
Um, See, there's obviously going to be change, okay, and we don't know what that new change is going to be. So, I think for see, it's the change and maybe the resistance or uncertainty with the change that actually creates the anxiety.
Right,
Acceptance of the change doesn't create anxiety.
it kills it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, I know this is going to happen. I'll deal with whatever it is. I'm ready for it. But maybe an unwillingness or you know and I recognize that even with myself. Like I'm saying, now both Monica and we've gotten so used to staying at home. I don't know what it's going to be
I don't know
like to go out, to be honest. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. post the lockdown, what would happen? I definitely think for I'm not sure anxiety would be the thing. I think many people will feel like how caged animals when they're let loose in the lawn, how it'll feel like. I think most people will feel that way in this while running, you know,
Left, right, and
with
center.
yeah. I think you know, and I hope that will happen soon. So I think it will be a feeling of liberation for most people. I'm not sure. How do you see the anxiety thing, if I may ask you? I know you're supposed to ask me questions, but I like your question. So, how?
Okay. Anxiety, I think the ones who actually survived this the best and made out of it have like really highly adaptable skills. So I was relieved actually when you're not meeting people. I was very happy because I think I took on so much work that I exhausted myself physically. So I was like, hooray, 2 weeks, we're calling classes off and we're not doing anything. And then I woke up, I was like, okay, this is not getting over. So then I switched to Zoom classes and things like that. But it was so much fun for me because everything remained the same and I was spending less time on it. So, according to anxiety, the thing is in Bahrain, restaurants were closed. We've already seen the pattern here. So, I'll just take 2 minutes to share. In Bahrain, restaurants were shut. Now, outdoor seating restaurants are open. The day it opened, they was waiting till 12 o'clock. So people just lashed out. They were just out, and because of which the cases are high right now. Currently, really high, the highest of all. And they started shutting the restaurants and things like that, and started going back to the old routine. So here especially, even like we didn't even have that severe lockdown as India. We had like maybe only 10% to 20% restrictions because our shopping malls were shut. We could go out in parks and do anything that we wanted. And yet we saw a pattern where people were jumping out and waiting to jump out. And after a month, likely to happen, yeah. Yeah, and after a month, there were house parties going on. And we had 2 Eids that we saw during this period. And in Eid, for those who are not aware, Middle East gets like about 4 to 5 days holiday. So the house parties happen, and I think people are still denying that there's corona, or they could, and they think because there is a social bubble created, nothing can happen to them until it happens to them, and then they get serious about it. But I think people just want to have realized how short life is and want to make the most out of it now. Spending all the resources to enjoy actually. There have been hotels who are holding day vacations. So it's really strange. They're charging a bomb. And yet you just get confined to a room and people are willing to do that for Eid. So I love the behavioral patterns that we're actually seeing. And I think people are jumping to get back to normal, and then they're being pushed back. They're jumping back even higher each time, and then like being pulled back each time.
I think that is going to happen.
Especially with the schools not happening and kitty parties happening online. I think there are a lot of moms who are upset. The husbands are not getting to get out. Kids are not getting to cycle or play probably. But I think a certain section, very few of us, not us, very few people have been very patient with understanding, that it will take time. The acceptability has sunk in only to those people. So I think anxiety is still yet to come. We're still yet to see the worst coming out in people in couple of months to go.
I think a key aspect is what you said, adaptability. The people who are more adaptable are the people who are dealing with this. So they like people are becoming creative in even business and ideas and survival of the fittest, and definitely people who are more adaptable to the situation.
Yeah, and like I recently wrote an article on that, looking at the pattern, and whoever adapted first, everyone started just following that person. So it was kind of an inspiration because you just have to be like quick at whatever you're doing. So
absolutely.
That's my small take on it. Probably relevant from a coach's point of view. But you know what I really liked in this interview, and probably in my audience, I want to highlight this, that you know coaches aren't perfect themselves. Coaches also need coaches. Like how Monica and Ashlesh have so beautifully. Not only like during the lockdown, we've seen them personally in the workshops. How they've like managed to be such a great team. So Ashlesh, can you just tell, you know, for people who probably are going through anxiety problems, want to reach out to you for the same, or maybe they're excited about the training programs that, you know, we've mentioned here, how can they reach you and know more about you?
Okay. So, um, like our website is nearwayacademy.com. That's definitely one place, you know, people can go there and have a look and see. Just to give you an idea of what we are intending to do, Riya, if I may just take a few minutes. So, during this lockdown, uh, you know, we've been training coaches for some time, right? And I'm very, very proud of our coaches. We've had some excellent coaches. So what one of the things what we did as a coaches community is that we just put out, you know, those of you who are struggling emotionally, reach out. And there were people who reached out, and our coaches have worked beautifully with them, beautifully. Now these coaches don't work with us; they're all independent, right? And they work beautifully, help people deal with very, very strong emotional issues, anxiety issues, feeling depressed. Though we're not trained with dealing with depression, one should go to a psychologist for that. So one of the things that we are doing at New Ways, we are working towards building really, really good NLP coaches. So that's one of our focuses. We love NLP. We think that's been a blessing for us. So that is something that we provide. We are also working towards building some products or some courses. So and we're intending to create those so it becomes easier for people from any part of the world if they want to access it. They don't have to attend a workshop. They can actually go through maybe an online course, use the tools for themselves. So it's something that becomes easier from an investment point of view, and easier for them to keep going through it if they want to.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the things that we are going to put our attention on. So yeah, building coaches and NLP coaches, and we're going to be creating our courses, which would be there. And then we're also looking at doing shorter courses that can help people. So it's not we're still in the planning stage, because till November actually both Monica and I are just super busy. So after that we'll have some time, and then that's what we intend doing.
Wow, that's great. So, anyone who's interested in any of these things, please reach out to them on their website. And I think it's going to be a blessing for anyone who even decides to have like even one short conversation with Ashlesh, because I know how much it's impacted me and so many people in our community. He's not even only given me the training, but the community itself. I think I have seeked out help personally to so many coaches that I think it's gonna take another session for me to talk about. But thank you so much, Ashlesh. I mean, this is amazing, and I hope anyone going through anxiety, either you create self-awareness or a support system for any of your friends or family who might be going through the same. It's simple. It can be done. And with this episode, we're coming to an end. I hope you found anxiety be solvable, and that was our aim of this episode. So thank you, Ashlesh.
Thanks.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and we might actually have more requests coming in. If you guys like this, please comment as to what you want maybe Ashlesh or me to take up next. And if there's a request, we'll probably get Ashlesh back on this channel to speak about new things. Right?
Okay.
All right
Thanks.
then.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye bye. Namaste, everyone. Bye bye.